There we go. That is called Be Wonderful. That is the brilliant new single from Tapao. And I'm pleased to say that Carol Decker joins us now on the line. Carol, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really boiling hot. It's boiling hot here in Oxfordshire. Yeah. Hope you've got good weather.
We have at the minute. I don't think we're as hot as you are over there, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So
as hot as I am.
We are loving the new single, Be Wonderful. This was recorded just before lockdown happened, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had 2 or 3 tracks written and recorded, and then we thought, well, what are we going to do then? Everything happened, as we all know. And Ronnie Rogers, who's my long-term partner in Power, said, well, let's just put a song out anyway. You know, it's something to do, quite frankly. And he said, but well, you'll need to do a lockdown video. So fortunately, both of my kids, Scarlett and Dylan, have done a BTEC in creative media production. So they can do all the editing. They've got the software. We had a camera. And so we just did the best that we could with household objects, our chickens, our duck, our mad Irish setter, and me in a onesie. And if people want to go to onto YouTube and look for Tapao Official Be Wonderful, then you can see the video that goes with the song.
Brilliant. So will there be an album to follow then once all this is over?
Probably, yeah. We put a download single out last year called Run, which is also fantastic. Go look for that, folks. It's all on the download platforms. And again, I did a video with my kids, with Scarlett's student friends, and paid them all in pizza. So it was a really good deal for me. Yeah. Mind you, Domino's is pretty expensive these days.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, we have Run, which came out last year. That's a great summer song. We've got Be Wonderful out now. We've got a couple more. We're going to drip feed them, and then I think parcel them all up as an album and put them out again with a nice project, you know. So we're just doing what we can, you know.
Is it good to have total control over what you do now with no big record company behind you kind of pushing away at you?
That side of it I really enjoy, because we did have some battles with our record company, because they're obviously commercial, and they're like, you know, I remember having arguments about bits of songs that needed to be chopped out because it was too long for radio, and that was my art, you know. I don't really care anymore. And so, yeah, we did have some battles and arguments over what the next single should be. But to be honest, nobody really knows what's going to be a hit. Otherwise, you'd have a hit every time you put a record out, you know. Sometimes we were right, sometimes they were right, you know. So it is nice to do our own thing, and we now have 30 years of experience, as you know, in the studio, and I think Ronnie and I are good songwriters, you know. But I do miss their money. I miss, you know, because what record companies are great. They give you a massive marketing budget. So if you see an artist, you know, on a major television show or in all the magazines, you know, there's been a PR campaign behind that, and that costs a lot of money. So I miss that. Yeah, so we do it all by social media and hooking up with great people like you and doing what we can. And necessity is the mother of invention, isn't it? So you keep on.
So how's life in lockdown been for you at the moment?
Pretty good. I've got to say, I can't complain on a personal level, because we're quite lucky. We live in Oxfordshire, so we're in the countryside. So we haven't been crammed and on top of each other. We've got a nice garden. We live opposite fields. We can walk the dog. We can get our exercise. We can give each other some space. We've got a little bit of workout equipment in the garage, including a punch bag, which everybody goes and takes a turn on. Stick someone's face on it. Go back in calm, you know. So we're quite lucky, but I do feel like I'm in an open prison or under house arrest, you know, and I'm finding it as frustrating as everybody else is. You do the best you can. You count your blessings. You try and be productive, but I want the world back, and this is the most awful thing I've ever experienced. You know, I'm sure it's the same for you and all the viewers. You know, it's like something out of a sci-fi movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
One of those pandemic movies. It's all awful.
Let's talk about the greatest record ever made, China in Your Hand. Are you fed up talking about it?
No, it's the gift that keeps on giving. You know, what am I going to say? It's like we had this, who knew, you know, we didn't know it was going to be the hit that it was. In fact, it didn't even exist when we got our record deal. We got our record deal on Valentine was the one that always caught people's attention, any record companies or managers or, you know, people we were talking to. Valentine, Monkey House, Wing and a Prayer, and then Heart and Soul came along, which elevated us a bit more, and we got sort of production company interested. And then we got a deal, and then we picked a producer, and we picked Roy Thomas Baker, who Ronnie loved because Ronnie loved Queen, and he just not long had a massive hit with that great Cars album with Drive on it, and you know, and I loved that, so it was perfect for Ron and I. And we were in the studio. We recorded in Wisconsin, a couple of hours out of Chicago, and one song just wasn't working, and we had to dump it. We got to the point where we were wasting time, and so we were a song short for the album. And Roy said, "Have you got anything else?" And Ronnie and I had, subsequent to getting our deal, started writing China in Your Hand. Ron had roughed out piano. I had a sort of vocal ideas, some lyrics, and the story I wanted to tell about Mary Shelley writing the Book of Frankenstein, which is what the lyrics are all about. And Roy just went, "That is a great song." So we literally finished it on the hoof in the studio. And Roy put all the bells, and, you know, if you know Bohemian Rhapsody and the way that Roy produces. So anyway, it became this massive hit, but it wasn't even born when we went into the studio. So it's just one of those moments, you know, it happens in a generation, I think, a song like that.
And before you got the deal with Bridge of Spies, was it a long, hard struggle to get to that point?
Yes, it was. I didn't actually start singing until I was 22. I knew I could sing, but I never considered it as a career until I went as a mature student to art school. And then you meet really wacky people who were, you know, left of centre, and try it, you know. And I was like, okay. So went to a party, met a guitarist, he needed a singer. So I got my first band. And then I met Ronnie, who was in another local band. This is in Shrewsbury in Shropshire. And then he joined my band. Then we left that band, started just writing together. My dad lent us some money to buy some home recording equipment. And we were 6 years in and out of covers bands and sending tapes away, cassettes in those days, to record companies, trying to get a gig where an A&R man would promise that he would turn up, and they never did, usually. So it's a long, long slog. And then finally we did get London management, and then we got a deal with Siren Records, which is Virgin around the world. Yeah.
So were the 1980s, was it a good time to be working in the industry?
Well, I think so. I've got not a lot to compare it with, really. I don't know what it's like to be a young band now, and how you survive, you know. But then it was more straightforward. You got in your van, you went off and you did a gig and hoped people turned up, and you wrote some songs, recorded them, and hoped people bought them. You know, is it still like that? I don't know. I'm still doing it that way, but you certainly, as we used to say, shifted units. So you sold records and you made some money.
Was there any rivalry between the other bands around at the time?
Oh, tons. We all used to sort of curl a Billy Idol lip at each other, you know. Funnily enough, it was, who did people pitch you against? It's usually the press that pitch you against. Like we were up against, I think then Jericho and Wet, 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 I think, were around at sort of the same sort of time as we were. And so, you know, you'd be vying for a place in the charts. And it was very competitive, and you would get your midweek chart position on a Wednesday, and then the chart would be released on a Sunday. So it was very competitive. And it's funny because now when we all meet up at the big 80s revival festivals, you know, there's no, well, not for me, there's no rivalry at all. It's a joy to see everybody. Yeah. And there's lots of laughs and a glass of plonk backstage, you know, whereas before we would have like, oh, scratch your eyes out, you know.
So, Carol, once we get out of lockdown, are you guys going back on the road again?
Well, my work's cancelled for the whole year, which is a real bummer, because even if we lift out of lockdown by June, July, you can't reschedule all the festivals that have been cancelled. You know, there isn't enough time to reschedule them. So I've had all my work for the year postponed till next year, and then I'm keeping my fingers crossed that all the reschedules actually go ahead, because it's going to be hard not gigging because times when I feel I'd like some time off, and then when you've got endless amount of time off in front of you, it's a bit much. So we'll just have to get writing, won't we, and be productive. Yeah.
Because you've been doing some of these big orchestral shows as well, haven't you?
I have, with the London Philharmonic and the BBC Concert Orchestra and the Opera North Orchestra in Leeds. It's been absolutely fantastic to sing with like a 75-piece orchestra. So it's great to rework what you do and do it in different ways, you know. Sorry, if you can hear a noise, that's my son banging ice cubes out onto the worktop. He's helping his dad in the garden, so it's a bit hot. I know. Well, I tried to close the door, and then the dog nutted the door open, so I can't. You know what it's like being a mom. You can't ever get any time to yourself.
Great stuff. Well, Carol, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for doing this. And we hope to see you back in Belfast sometime soon.
I would love to come back to Belfast. It's not as much fun as it was staying in the Europa with all the barbed wire around it.
But it's still there. The Europa's still there.
There were soldiers everywhere. It was like really, made you glad to be alive. Kept you on your toes. Yeah, I'd love to come back to Belfast. And thanks for playing the new track. So it's been wonderful. It's on all the download platforms, and the video is up on the To Power official YouTube channel.
Great stuff. Carol, thank you.
Thanks.